Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and here's your detailed weather forecast update for Wednesday the 17th of September 2025. This is a big update. Far North Queensland has copped one of the wettest September nights on record, with 323 millimetres falling at Topaz, so without anything else, let's get stuck straight into things with the situation up there. As mentioned, severe weather has made itself very much at home up in far northern Queensland. We've had a trough set itself up just offshore from the coastline, and this has resulted in some of the heaviest rainfall we've seen for the month of September on record up in northern Queensland. As we already know, the last couple of days up in far north Queensland, particularly for the Cassowary Coast, have been extremely wet, especially around Innisfail, which has picked up near record September rainfall already. But last night, that rainfall shifted inland to a place called Topaz, which has 323.4 millimetres in the gauge at the time of recording this video. And as you can see, this massive blob of rainfall here that's situated just towards the west of Innisfail, which is right over the top of Topaz, which is where the Johnston River or the North Johnston River starts and the South Johnston River also feeds from. It is still raining, and still raining very heavily around Topaz. A few of the spots around this location include Mirrawinny, but it is south of Fishery Falls, and there aren't really many places or communities in this pocket of northern Queensland. And Innisfail's also really missed out on this extreme rainfall. You'd think 300 millimetres, 20 k's up the road from Innisfail, you'd be looking at least 200 in the gauge there. No, Innisfail has had 36 millimetres, so it goes to show just how isolated and how localised some of the rainfall it can be up in northern Queensland. And it also highlights that the forecast models have absolutely no hope with weather events like this. The Access Convective completely missed it, which is quite disappointing from a forecast model like that. Normally they absolutely nail this type of rainfall events, but it just goes to show up in far north Queensland, when heavy showers are on the forecast, you just have to be expecting the worst because it could come through. We were talking about last night the chance of up to 200 millimetres being a pretty remote possibility through the Cassowary Coast. Well, that sure has materialised. Widespread falls between 100 to 160 millimetres have been reported inland from Innisfail and Tully, but again, it's been in a very localised pocket of the Cassowary Coast. It hasn't stretched inland through the mountains down towards Cardwell. It hasn't even stretched down to Tully, which I believe has 5 millimetres in the gauge. Cairns actually has picked up 62 millimetres since 9 a.m. yesterday. The rainfall into the Daintree has been equally impressive, and again, if we play this radar loop through over the last 24 hours, it basically hasn't stopped raining around Daintree Village and Wonga Beach either. In fact, outside of Port Douglas, we've had pretty steady rainfall around the Daintree Village for the last 12 to 16 hours or so, and I've just had a community member post that they've had 260 millimetres in the Daintree Village, so very significant rainfall accumulations there throughout the Daintree rainforest. And again, with rainfall still falling and not going anywhere in the next couple of hours, these rainfall accumulation numbers are likely to continue increasing. Now, September typically is the driest month of the year for far northern Queensland. Typically in September we see widespread falls between 50 to 80 millimetres or so, 100 millimetres of the wettest of locations. The decile 9 rainfall, which is that kind of 90th percentile and above rainfall accumulations for North Queensland, is seldom over 200 millimetres, and for Cairns it's normally very much below the kind of 60 or 70 millimetre mark. Pretty much everywhere up in far North Queensland has exceeded that, and in the last week alone we've had widespread falls between 200 to 300 millimetres, and again with that 323 millimetre dump from Topaz overnight, that takes week-long rainfall accumulations there to about 600 millimetres. That's reminiscent of what we see in January, February and March, so it's safe to say that September 2025 has been record-breaking wet up in far northern Queensland through a weather event that really didn't look like it was going to create record-breaking wet weather, and it just goes to show how easily and how quickly these rainfall accumulations can blow out of the water up in northern Queensland. I mean, just have a look at this. This is what the European Centre forecast model is calling in terms of rainfall accumulations. You can see they've been going at about 1 to 2 millimetres every 3 hours throughout the remainder of the morning, and it does increase a little bit, but it just goes to show that the forecast models have no hope with forecasting accurately the rainfall that we see up in northern Queensland. The Access Convective has cottoned onto it, I believe, a little bit better. In fact, overnight they did have some pretty serious numbers from their last night update on the rainfall situation up around northern Queensland, but again, it just doesn't do it justice. I mean, this is the best and the highest resolution forecasting that we have here, and the maximum numbers that we're seeing are around 120 to 130 millimetres, and it has it a little bit further north as well around Cairns, which isn't likely to pick up the worst of the rainfall. And it just goes to show, again, I would like to highlight this point one more time, up in northern Queensland, sometimes it's just best to look out the window, look at the sky and see what's rolling in, because sometimes we just don't know until it shows up on the radar imagery. It is all powered by that coastal trough, and as you can see, there is more cloud activity streaming in between Wudgel down to about Innisfail, and I believe that this wet weather is very much going to continue into the next 6 hours or so. The heaviest fall is likely to be through the Daintree rainforest by the looks of things, but it also looks like we've got some pretty meaty cloud now moving in towards the Cassowary Coast, and that's also likely to create some pretty significant rainfall accumulation accumulations into the northern parts of the Cassowary Coast as well, particularly south of the Yarrabah Peninsula down to about Innisfail. It looks like Topaz is going to continue getting absolutely smashed with rainfall as well throughout the remainder of this morning. The rainfall there is not going anywhere anytime soon. But the winds have changed a little bit. They are still out of the southeast, but they're a little bit more easterly focused, which does kind of support that trajectory of this rainfall here coming in more out of the northeast and the east. And that's likely to continue the Daintree rainforest with near record-breaking wet weather for this time of the year, at least for the remainder of today. Cairns will also likely see some very good showers. I'd be surprised if a further 40 millimetres did not fall into Cairns in the next 6 hours or so. And that also supports the northern parts of the Cassowary Coast continuing to pick up some of the very heaviest rainfall that far north Queensland has to offer. This would blow my socks off if this rainfall occurred in February or March, or any month of the wet season for that matter, but the fact that it's happening in September is absolutely crazy. We do not see these sort of rainfall accumulations often up in far north Queensland in the month of September, whilst the wettest September days and the wettest dry season days are often like this, where we see 200 or 300 millimetres coming out of the blue for these locations. It is still highly unusual and still kind of once in a decade, once every 50 years, even once in a century. I believe that the rainfall that we've had over the course of the last kind of 16 hours or so would definitely class as a once in a decade type weather event, and probably a once in a 50-year type weather event as well, at least for the month of September. If this was in December, January, February, March, even though it would be some pretty significant rainfall, it wouldn't be anything record-breaking or anything to kind of stop the news at, but again, really significant stuff for the month of September and a sign of things to come. Now, there is a severe weather warning out for current rainfall accumulations across northern Queensland. We are going to be talking about some flooding as well through the Johnston River, and particularly the North Johnston. We're likely to see some moderate flooding out of this rainfall event here. We could even see some major flooding. If we see a further 150 millimetres throughout the course of today, we will definitely see some major flooding around Topaz. And if you do live in a flood-prone area around the Johnston, it's very important to remain vigilant of floodwaters today. Normally, anything between minor to moderate flooding is normally no concern for northern Queensland. They're built for that sort of stuff. Major flooding is where things do start to become quite problematic, and I do fear that Innisfail may have some floodwater problems that are going to catch them very much off guard later this afternoon into this evening, and that will especially be the case if the rainfall keeps falling. We'll have a very big problem if another 200 millimetres comes down around Topaz, and whilst that's unlikely, anything can happen, and last night has been a fine example of that. That is for sure. But yeah, northern Queensland absolutely rocking the start of the wet season. I think it's safe to say that it's begun now. Got a bit of flack for calling it a couple of days ago, but it's definitely safe to say that it started now, with nearly half a metre in the rain gauge over the last week or so around Topaz. It really has been a pretty wet start to northern Queensland's wet season. I would like to talk about these thunderstorms as well. They're going to fire up across interior parts of New South Wales. We will likely see a few thunderstorms today into the mid-north coast and around the northern tablelands. They will be some very weak thunderstorms, but we will likely see 1 or 2 cells fire up. Definitely non-severe thunderstorms. We're not talking about anything too crazy, but you can see convective available potential energy values will be there. Combining that with heat, the cold front moving through, which is creating that instability in the atmosphere, and moisture coming in off the Tasman Sea, we will likely see some decent conditions for a few pulse thunderstorms to fire up. Again, it's nothing to write home about. It's nothing to go out there and have a chase for or have a poke around. It definitely isn't going to be anything too significant, that's for sure. Enjoy the warmer weather, and if you do get a thunderstorm or two, count that as a bonus. But yeah, we've got some decent convective available potential energy values, and again, with those drivers, the wind coming off the Tasman Sea coming into the northern tablelands and especially the mid-north coast, we may see 1 or 2 half-decent thunderstorms around Taree or Kempsey. The convective forecast models haven't really been calling for it, which normally when we do are talking about a thunderstorm outbreak potential, we like to look at the convective forecast modeling, but at this point in time, there is a chance of a few thunderstorms, but it's definitely nothing to write home about right now. The better chance will be on Friday by the looks of things. We still have that thunderstorm chance into interior parts of Queensland, South Australia and New South Wales in a very similar fashion to what we saw last week around Tuesday and Wednesday. Some very good thunderstorms are possible into the northeastern corner of South Australia and the southwestern corner of Queensland through Friday afternoon and into Friday evening. Some good thunderstorms also expected in towards south central Queensland as well, and locations that are likely to receive thunderstorms and potentially severe thunderstorms that include Bedore, Birdsville, Windora, Thargomindah, Charleville, Roma, and probably as far out towards the east as about St. George. Thunderstorms could fire up in towards southeast Queensland, and particularly towards the east of Warwick. We may see 1 or 2 thunderstorms as highlighted by this forecast modelling here, but the chances aren't especially too great, and that is mainly because the convective available potential energy values are just not there for thunderstorms in southeast Queensland right now. 400 to 500 joules per kilogram of energy for these thunderstorms to make the most out of is not really that great. We also don't really have anything special in the way of convective available potential energy values out towards southwestern and northeastern South Australia or Queensland and South Australia respectively. So I'm not sure why the thunderstorm outbreak is expected to be as prominent out there. We've definitely got some warm temperatures and some good humidity values coming through, but this is definitely a thunderstorm event that could bust out, that's for sure. We're going to have to talk a little bit more about that in tomorrow morning's forecast update. The forecast is actually still surprisingly uncertain for just being 2 days away out towards this part of Queensland and New South Wales and also South Australia. We could see some decent thunderstorms, that's for sure. Most likely to be a little bit more northern based on what we saw last week, but again, some good thunderstorms also possibly over the border and around Wanaring, White Cliffs and Wilcannia in towards the northern half of New South Wales. And a few of these thunderstorms may also pipe up around the Victoria and New South Wales border as well on the New South Wales side, north of Mildura, but around Broken Hill, Punkarri, and then out towards Hay and Urana. We may see a couple of thunderstorms fire up in this little pocket of New South Wales as well before a strong cold front comes through on Friday night, and that's going to be followed up by another strong weather system coming through on Saturday through the Bass Strait. Very strong winds expected across southeastern Australia and a very stormy weekend expected, generally speaking, across Victoria, but especially for Tasmania, we're expecting some pretty significant storm conditions. More information on that over on the Facebook page. But yeah, it's that time of the year when we start to talk about storm season as a significant aspect on the forecast modelling, and that most certainly is the case through parts of New South Wales and Queensland as we head out towards the later parts of this week. Whilst thunderstorms aren't expected to be anything too crazy or too flash through today, and they're definitely not expected to be anything too flash either on Friday, they're definitely now on the forecast, and it's going to be something we're going to be talking about in quite great detail in the next couple of months. But apart from that, there's not an awful lot more going on. And even if we push the forecast modelling forward a little bit later, you can see there's nothing in the way of significant storm outbreaks until we get out to about October the 1st, when those storms do start to fire up on the forecast a little bit properly, looking at a little bit more on the long range side of things. And one thing that I would like to address in this forecast update just briefly, and it's something that I'm going to address over on Facebook as well in the next couple of hours, is we're definitely well and truly in a negative Indian Ocean dipole phase, and that normally means enhanced rainfall through parts of New South Wales and Victoria, pretty much from the get-go, from when the IOD or the negative IOD is declared. The rainfall is coming, but we've had a very ugly setup with the Madden-Julian oscillation. Now, this is a bit of nerd talk, but I'm going to really try and oversimplify it for everybody, and believe me, this is oversimplified. The MJO, or the Madden-Julian oscillation, is something that rotates around the Earth counterclockwise, and it's basically a massive energy ball that is situated over the tropics that kind of enhances moisture and enhances thunderstorm and rainfall development over tropical locations. Now, there's 4 sections. Section 4 is the Australian region, or the Indo-Pacific region. The Madden-Julian oscillation for the last 40 days has managed to stay well clear of Section 4, which means moisture across northern Australia has been very minimal, that's for sure. And when we do have that negative IOD phase, we need that enhanced moisture to be situated over the waters of the Indian Ocean, and that just hasn't happened at this point in time yet, and that's why we haven't seen a significant buff in the moisture and the rainfall across New South Wales and Victoria. Believe me, it is coming. It's not likely to happen until at least October 1st, but it is going to be on its way, and October already shaping up to be a very wet month through parts of New South Wales and Victoria. So then why is the rainfall occurring up in far north Queensland so significant? It's far north Queensland. There's not much more to that except that it is tropical far north Queensland. They are special, they are unique, and they can have rainfall even when other locations don't have rainfall or it isn't on the forecast. Believe me, far north Queensland is a unicorn for rainfall. They always seem to get it. Doesn't matter if it's a wet year or a dry year, they can all get some pretty significant rainfall accumulations. And just briefly into the southwestern corner of Western Australia, we do have that cold front coming through at this point in time. That's just managed to move through the southwest coast in the last couple of hours at 5 o'clock this morning right now. That's going to be pushing up into the Perth metro area. A few rain showers already started there, but we're not expecting the real rainfall to start until about 9 or 10 o'clock this morning. And the heavier rainfall accumulations will begin to pipe up around 10 o'clock or so for the Perth metro area. Not expecting anything too crazy, but if you have a look at the cold front right now, it is a pretty solid rain band. It does persist for a while because it is rather slow moving. So I do expect rainfall accumulations through the southwest to be around that 10 to 15 millimetre mark, and then into the Perth metro area between about 8 to 13 millimetres or so. Very specific number, but I reckon that the rainfall is going to fall somewhere between that mark for the Perth metro area, potentially up to around 20 millimetres into the hills, and some other locations as well through the southwest could also pick up around 20 millimetres. Rainfall likely to be between 5 to 10 millimetres through parts of the wheat belt, and this cold front isn't expected to make it deep out into the wheat belt either, so rainfall accumulations towards the east of Corrigin and Lake late grace. Not expected to be anything above 5 millimeters at this point in time. Also not expected to be a shower-dominated weather event as well, and definitely no severe weather coming in at this point in time. But definitely some interesting stuff, that is for sure. And at this time of the year, it's definitely the weather that we do expect. But that is going to do it for today's weather forecast update. It's been a pretty severe one, and one that's caught me very much off guard. I wasn't looking forward to making this forecast update with the rainfall up in northern Queensland, that's for sure. And it is that time of the year, and we definitely need to start getting our work hats on, that's for sure, up in far north Queensland, because this rainfall is only going to intensify. But that is going to do it for me today. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now. Could not run the show without them. And of course, their support is, as always, massively appreciated. That is going to be all for me today. We'll catch you on the next storm. Goodbye.